Welcome to 52 Weeks of Hope, Elena.
Thank you for having me. Sorry I interrupted you.
It's totally fine.
I love that introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, it's fun looking up. Okay, so one of the most interesting things of all, besides the fact that I don't talk to that many people that were at the Boston Marathon terror attack, I told you right before when we were talking, I was just at that site, and you always
Yeah.
take a moment and kind of
Mhm.
breathe, is that you couldn't find resources online of someone that looked like you
No.
suffering and recovering, I should say, from PTSD, which is so surprising. I mean, in research, you found a lot of military people, which of course, but not people, and that you didn't realize till like 3 years later.
Yeah, I
Which
mean,
is
I think the bombing was almost 10 years ago. It'll be
right.
10 years in April. And so the narrative around post-traumatic stress disorder was very military focused at that time. And even when I was hospitalized 3 years after the bombing, I really had a hard time finding someone who looked like me, who was talking about this journey and how to heal. And so that's why I started Still Blooming Me.
Yeah. Talk about how I find it fascinating. And one of the things that you talk about, there's so many things in my head because
That's okay.
um, I've had other guests say, oh, I was put on meds, I was this and that, and none of that worked. And you do the EMDR therapy. And my
Yes.
best friend swears by that. So can you talk about what that is and how that ended up being one of your solutions
Yes.
and I love that you use the term toolbox also.
Yeah, I mean, I think EMDR is a great way to desensitize trauma in the brain. I also believe that coming at trauma from many different angles is important. And so that's why I do a lot of body work as well. But specifically, EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And basically, what they're doing in a therapy session when they're administering it is they're using bilateral stimulation. So either you're holding these vibrating tappers, or they're using lights or sound, or a combination of all of the three, which my therapist does, while you're going through, reliving these traumas. And it helps to confuse what's happening in the brain and rebuild neural pathways. And so I started that almost 6 years ago, about 6 years ago after my hospitalization. And that, along with acupuncture, working out, eating, taking supplements, seeing a naturopathic doctor. I also take medications now as well. I have to get good sleep. I mean, there are a lot of things I do so that I can be here and be healthy for me and my kids and my husband and my family. So,
Yeah. So 3 years after the bombing, you ended up hospitalized. How
yes,
did that come about? You talk about being in Target or in the grocery store and just having to leave. So,
it was a buildup.
yeah.
So I think I kind of have to back up a little bit.
Go
At the
ahead.
time of the bombing, my kids were 6 months old and 3. And when we came home from Massachusetts to Phoenix, I just kind of like jumped back into nursing and changing diapers and running after a toddler. And like, I failed myself. I was taking care of everyone around me and I failed myself. And so around the 1 year anniversary is when I started having symptoms of PTSD. I was having severe nightmares, night terrors, and insomnia. And I just, again, the nightmares were not about the bombing. So I wasn't making the connection that this
Did
is
you
why I
talk
was
to
having
other
these nightmares.
Okay, so I'm gonna
Sorry.
interrupt. Did you talk to other people? Were you in contact with other people who had been at the site and had been there?
So I was with my brother-in-law, standing with him, waiting for my husband when the bombs went off. And we did not talk about what we went through together.
That's so
And
interesting.
I know, isn't that interesting? I think it's,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know why. And now we talk about it, but I think I kind of really I did make a conscious decision when I came home, like, I am going to forget about this. I'm going to forget about what I saw and smelled and felt and all of it. But my body didn't forget. And so when I started having really serious problems, I was not making the connection back to the bombing at all. And no one around me was saying, hey, I think what you're feeling could be related to the bombing, but also I was having a hard time verbalizing really what I was feeling too, because it felt so awful. So it took about 3 years. I was having panic attacks in public places, like you mentioned, in Target. I was having a hard time driving. I would have like these almost PTSD episodes that would get triggered, and it would kind of affect my sleep and my anxiety and depression and my weight. I would drop a lot of weight because I would kind of stop eating and just taking care of myself, you know? And on July 16th, 2016, I was watching the news, and that was a day a man drove a bus through Bastille Day celebrations in Nice, France. And I saw the footage of that. I heard a witness being interviewed, and I had a complete physical, somatic experience of a panic attack. I don't really know how else to, I felt like I was having a heart attack, basically. And that kind of spiraled me into I stopped eating, I stopped sleeping because I was waking up with these panic attacks. And 3 weeks later, I was hospitalized. So it was a build up, and I wasn't listening to myself.
Mhm.
I wasn't getting in deep, and I didn't have the awareness of what was happening to me.
Yeah. And at that point, did you know it was tied to the bombing when you did that? It was a trigger? Were you able to?
Yes,
Okay.
when that final piece of the Bastille Day attack, when that happened, I happened to be in Massachusetts at the time. I reached out to one of my best friends who is in Massachusetts, and I said, "This is what's happening. This is what I'm feeling." And she's like, "Elena," she's a psychology high school teacher. She teaches high school psychology. And she said, "Of course, you're having post-traumatic stress. Like, you just saw your own attack in these people. You heard what he said. That's what you experienced too. Like, you have PTSD." And then I was like, "Okay," but I didn't really know where to go
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
there. And it wasn't until like sometime like 3 weeks had passed and I had become suicidal. I mean, I think losing sleep like that is just it's
Sleep
impossible to stay
deprivation,
sane.
yeah, absolute sleep
Yeah.
deprivation and nauseousness, I think, are the 2 most debilitating things. That's just my
Mhm.
own personal opinion, but
Yeah.
yes, they just take you down fast. So, here you are, you're hospitalized. How long were you hospitalized?
About a week and a half, and it was really awful. They made me sicker, and they kinda threw every medication at me. I had never been on anything before, and they were just trying to, like, stabilize me and then send me on my way with all of these different doctors that I needed to see. So, it became like a puzzle that I had to put together myself and figure out, "Okay, you're now, like, the CEO of your own healing, and you need to find the right team to take care of you and see you through this time."
Yeah. Yeah, I interviewed somebody else. She went through the same, I mean, not that, but she went through her own breakdown, and to break through is really what I keep thinking then she had her own breakthrough, and she came up with her own. She does yoga.
Yeah.
She found her own homeopathic, and she's very vocal about it too. And yeah, it's a whole it's a toolbox, it is. And we all
Yeah.
come up with our own prescription, so to speak, that works. And I love that you give back now. Like, here's what you have found that works, and you've become a blogger, you help so many people. So how did you come up with your own here, they send you on your way a
Yeah.
week and a half later with all these meds and all
Mhm.
these people to see. How did you decipher what works for you?
Oh, it took time. I think the most important part of it was just being open-minded enough to be willing to try whatever it was. I mean, I would have run through a chicken coop naked if you told me that that would heal me. So I was just ready to do whatever it took. And I think that's what propelled me forward into healing maybe faster than some people, although it didn't feel fast when I was going through it because I've tried everything and I continue to try things, and I'm so grateful that I live right now when so much money and research and dedication is going into mental health And there are some truly great tools that you can keep with you that are not pharmaceuticals that will get you through these moments. I just kind of had to uncover them. But again, it took a lot of time and willingness to do the work.
Okay, so let's talk about what those tools are, because the fact that you don't have to take pharmaceuticals
I
is
do
such a
take
relief. I know you
pharmaceuticals.
did say that. No, you did say that,
Yeah.
but there's tools that aren't.
Yes. Oh
And
gosh,
I
yes.
love talking about those.
So some of them are apps, honestly. There's a couple of apps I'll share. One was recommended by my EMDR therapist. It mimics EMDR. So it's called Anxiety Release. It costs $5. It was created by a world-renowned EMDR therapist. It has guided meditations. You listen to it with headphones on, so it stimulates the bilateral. You get that bilateral stimulation with sound, and it's incredible. That is a very good app for anyone with anxiety, panic. But again, it's something you should share with your doctor and talk to them first to make sure that you can tolerate that kind of stimulation. The other app that I love right now is called Tapping Solutions, and it's where you use an EFT
Yeah.
protocol, I guess,
Right.
where you're tapping on different points in your body while listening to guided meditations. That's also a paid app. And they have a meditation for everything you can think of. And I also love Insight Timer. It's free. There are meditations from all practitioners all around the world, and I love their content too. Some of the other things that I like are supplements. I mean, CBD has been a huge part of my healing. I probably don't use it as consistently as I used to because now I have some other supplements and things that I use, but it's great. And I found some really great clean CBD products that I share on my website. I also love some of the devices and wearables that we're seeing now for anxiety. I use a Calm Go device. It's a device that you breathe through, and it's multisensory. So while you're breathing through it and you're focusing on your prolonging your exhalation, it is lighting up, vibrating, calibrating your breath to get you to prolong that exhalation. And the prescription is that you use this 3 minutes a day, and over time, you'll see a decrease in your anxiety. And that actually is very true. I love the device. I use it and keep it with me. I mean, I love homeopathy. I have a constitutional remedy that I take every day that helps. I could go on and on,
Yeah,
Lauren.
no,
I don't know
I
what you want me to
no,
talk
I
about.
love these things because I'm always
Yeah.
asking, what do you do when you're having I mean, these are the things
Yeah.
I love. I mean, I love journaling. I love
Yes.
meditation. I'm somebody
Yes.
that I do gratitude lists every day that I've done for a decade, that
I
I
think
exchange
it's
with my friends. So,
yeah.
so yeah, that's why I'm not stopping you.
Okay. Well, I think it's important to have many different things that you can reach for, because anyone who has anxiety, depression, or PTSD knows that a tool will work for a while and then it won't be as effective anymore. Just like sometimes
Really?
yes, just like Xanax or any pharmaceutical, tools lose their effectiveness. You have to keep this monster guessing. And that's why it's important to have a few different things at your disposal that you can reach for. I mean, I have a weighted blanket that I love. My whole family steals it from me. They love it too.
What does a weighted blanket do? I'm sorry. I mean, a weighted
Oh,
blanket
it's
to me
okay.
just sounds like it'll keep me warm. So I was looking at it for that purpose. So
It's
I have no idea. So
No, they're very
tell me,
good, and
tell me.
like they're researching them for kids with sensory issues and autism and all these things. But
Mhm.
it's basically so heavy. I think my blanket weighs 30 pounds, and if I'm having a hard time sleeping at night and I'm really restless, it will wake me up. And so sometimes I'll just grab that blanket, and it just puts pressure on the body and it makes you feel like you're just tight in a warm hug. It doesn't work for everyone, but again, like that's what me talking about these tools is about. I'm
Right,
trying to
right.
share many of them. So if something sticks with someone and it works for them, then great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
love that. So where do you learn about all of these?
On my own. It's
Yeah.
trial and error. I reach out to a lot of these companies and say, "Hey, I have a following. Can I try your product?" And then if I think it's worth it and helpful, then I will share it. I'm not someone that just shares everything. I get approached all the time to share different things, and
Yeah.
some of it out there is gimmicky, and that's just not who I am. So yeah, I just try and share very honestly my experience with these tools, and
Yeah, I
yeah,
saw the Kami Go on your
yeah,
website. I was like, so I was glad that you explained what it was because I was like, what is this? So
yeah,
I'm glad you said it. And by the way, all of everything of Elena's, there will be links to everything on the show notes, of
yeah,
course, and everywhere. So don't worry, you'll know where to find all of this. Okay, so the acupuncture, you are a
yes,
big advocate of that. How did
yes,
that come about? Did that because here and have you been doing that a long time? And I have a
yes.
very good friend who's a huge acupuncturist. She was actually a guest on the show
Oh my gosh,
a
that's
year or two ago. Yeah,
incredible.
she's a huge yeah.
Well, I love acupuncture. So similar to tapping solutions, which works with those meridians that you're
Right.
tapping on.
I've had 2 people that do tapping on the 2
Okay,
different people. I've had
perfect.
Mary
So,
Seiss who's back in the, like, late '80s started tapping.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, so you have different meridians in your body, and your energy kind of flows through these meridians, and that includes different organs and points on the body. And sometimes our energy can get stuck in those areas. So I use acupuncture to move the energy through my body. It's so beneficial for multiple ailments, not just mental health, physical health. I mean,
Oh,
hormonal
yeah, she uses it
imbalances.
for hormonal and people who are having trouble
Yes.
getting pregnant and, like,
Yes,
fertility
and
issues, and she
fertility,
uses it
yeah.
for so many different it's so old.
Mhm.
I mean, it's
Well, it's
like
it's
practice.
Chinese medicine.
Yeah,
It's been practiced for thousands of years. I
yeah.
mean, they knew so much about the body, and basically they're using these tiny needles to puncture like first few layers of the dermis, the skin, and I love acupuncture so much that I'm considering going to school to be an acupuncturist right now. So I just got to get my family on board because it's like a
She
4-year PhD
it
program.
is, but I
Yeah.
have to say that I'm trying to remember one of my kids, when they hurt their ankle when they were little, she came over and she, like, did the whole thing. I yeah, like, to
So
it's yeah.
I loved it so much, and kind of an offshoot of acupuncture is auricular therapy. Do you know anything
No,
about
I
that?
don't know that one.
Have you heard about ear seeds?
No, tell me about that. This is all
So,
so interesting.
your ear is a microsystem of your body, and there are about 150 points on the ear that correlate to different points on the body. And just like acupuncture, you can use these ear seeds to treat a multitude of ailments. And I
Okay.
love it so much that I got certified in it a few years ago.
Wow. So
I
where do you
mostly just
touch? So where do you
so
touch to heal
they're
different
these
parts?
so they're these tiny vicarious seeds that are attached to an adhesive, almost like a little band-aid, and you apply them to different points on the ear, and the
Mhm.
patch stays on for about 3 to 5 days, like, to continue that alleviating whatever it is you're treating. But I've used them on my kids, on my husband. I mean, my daughter had food poisoning. I stopped her throwing up after 7 hours. I was like, "What can I try? Let's try an ear seed." So, it's just another tool in my toolbox that I use all the time here at home in my life. I share it with people. If it sticks, great. If it doesn't, maybe there's another tool they'll love. So,
Oh, I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Are they on your website, the ear
Yeah,
seeds?
they're on my
Okay,
website
I
too.
gotta look
Yeah.
that yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. My friend loves her doing her acupuncture. That's something really, really good. So when somebody says is they have this feeling that they're not doing what they're meant to do here,
Yeah.
and they're afraid to make that leap, what would you tell them?
Well, I'm kind of going through that right
Yeah,
now
yeah.
too. I think with the healing, I can kind of talk about healing and from PTSD when
Mhm.
and how that relates to that. It's like that song, you're going on a bear hunt and you can't go over the swamp, you can't go around it, you have to go through it. And so much of this I've learned is just going through it, being present for it, telling yourself you're safe, being gentle with yourself through it. And I think having that experience, I've been able to kind of apply it to some other parts of my life that have been challenging. But also, one of the other things I've learned through this is we're born with gifts. We're born with gifts, and you have to tap into those gifts when you're going through something hard. Like, I was born with incredible patience. I inherited it from my mom, and my husband, who's from Boston, has no patience. So he's like, "You're so patient." And I used that gift so much through this journey because I had to just sit with these feelings sometimes and be present with them. And it was so hard. So that gift really helped me. My gift of creativity, I've always been a very creative person, and that has helped influence Still Blooming Me and kind of building this beautiful space where people can go and feel like they're not alone. And that has helped me heal too. So I think part of going through something hard is really just diving deep, identifying those gifts that you have, and using them. Using them.
Yeah, let's talk about how you became this blogger and just started putting that out there, because I think that's just so cool that you started doing that thinking, "Oh, nobody's gonna read this," because there was nothing for you,
Yeah,
and
yeah. So I started journaling in the hospital. Basically, like the only thing I had were a composition book and like a tiny little pencil. So I just started journaling my feelings, and a lot of it, I mean, even pages of it were just like, I want to live. How am I going to live? How am I going to embrace this challenge I've been given? And so a few weeks after I got out of the hospital, a very close friend of mine was going through my journal with me, and she's like, "You've got to share this. Like, people want to know. They want to hear about this. I mean, what you went through was awful, and you're still going through it, and people have moved on. Like, the world has moved on. They've forgotten about the bombing, but you're still living with this trauma of these seconds of your life." So I started just a blog, and I thought, okay, no one's going to read this. This is mainly for me to capture this moment in my life. And if not for anything, just for my kids to read one day when maybe they're going through a hard time and they need to know that they will get through it. Like, this is what I can do for them in that moment. So I started sharing, and then my blog was recognized by Maria Shriver not
okay.
long after, and I was named an architect for change on her website, which is incredible, and I love her tools. She just does
Yeah,
such a
yeah,
great
yeah, yeah.
job. So I wrote a piece for her, and that kind of propelled, I think, some of the following. And now I have followers in like 80 plus countries. And so I just keep writing and sharing for them, and I get good feedback, and people keep following, so I just keep
You're
going.
helping people.
Yeah.
It's a helping kinda, it's like there was nothing for you, so here you are, you're helping others, and they probably say, "Hey, I'm doing this." You probably get some ideas from some people saying
A
like,
lot of
"This is working
ideas.
for me," and also okay, so and I also saw you did a, Daring Greatly workshop. Did you
Oh, yes. Okay, yes.
okay,
Yes, I
yeah,
did.
so I wanted to hear about that.
My EMDR therapist is certified with Brene Brown's Research Institute to
Mhm.
teach her content. So she does workshops several times a year, and anyone can participate. In fact, we had a gentleman from LA who was in our group, but it's a very small group. She has a boat in San Diego on the bay, and our retreat was there. It was 2 days, and it's intense content. I mean, Daring Greatly, the content is based on Brene Brown's book. And so we dove into like vulnerability and
Yeah.
shame and all of these things. But it was a 2 day workshop, and it was great. I try and do a retreat like that at least once a year, just to kind of like keep my saw sharp, and I always learn something, and it's good for me. So
Yeah.
this year was the Daring Greatly, and then in March we will be doing the next Brene Brown retreat. So
Okay, good. Yeah,
yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I think retreats are always good. It's all peeling the onion.
Yeah.
It's getting to the meat of stuff, and when we're ready. Yeah,
Yes.
I just think it's so good. Do you have a message of hope you want to give?
I think the world right now is kind of going through it. We've been through a collective trauma the last few years with COVID, and I don't even know if we're in a better place right now than we were then. So I think my advice would just be to be gentle with yourself, like I mentioned before, and sometimes just turn off the noise and just focus on what's happening in your own home, doing your best there, and trying to move forward the best you can with those gifts that you have in mind that you're born with, using those gifts to get you through what's hard.
Yeah, give yourself grace.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody has gifts. Everyone has their own unique handprint, and you're the first person. I love that you have the patience. I don't know. You're the first person I know that said, "And have the gift of patience." So I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yay, yay,
I think
you!"
it's a virtue, actually.
It
I
is.
don't know. But yeah,
It
it's a gift of mine.
definitely is. Oh, that's so great. And is there anything else that I should have asked you that will be done? And you'll be like, Lauren should have asked me this that you want
No,
to
I
share.
don't
Okay.
think so. No, I think what you're doing here is great, and I love your work, and thank you for including me.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for being a guest today on 52 Weeks of Hope.
You're welcome.